911, what's your emergency?
It was a quiet Saturday morning in Wellington, Florida, May 26, 1990, the kind of morning where sunlight drifts through suburban windows, where neighbors sip coffee and children ride bicycles, where nothing feels out of place until a knock at the door changes everything. A knock that carries balloons, flowers, and death. A knock that will haunt a family for decades. A knock that will become known as the work of the killer clown. May 26, 1990, a morning that carried the illusion of safety, of routine, of ordinary suburban life. Inside her home on Morning Glory Drive, Marlene Warren was with her son Joe and a few of his friends. The weekend unfolding with the simple rhythm of laughter and conversation, the kind of scene that felt untouchable until the knock came. Marlene was 40 years old, a mother with a reputation for kindness, a woman who kept her home warm and welcoming. That morning she wore casual clothes, nothing remarkable, just the attire of someone enjoying a quiet weekend. Joe was 21. Still living at home, and his friends often came by to spend time in the spacious house. The Aero Club community was built for comfort, with wide streets and trimmed hedges, a place where neighbors waved from driveways and children rode bicycles without fear. It was the kind of place where crime felt distant, where danger belonged to other towns, other lives. The sound of footsteps approached the front door, the doorbell rang, and Marlene walked forward, unaware of what waited outside. When she opened the door, the sight was surreal. A clown stood before her, orange wig blazing, white face paint stretched into a smile that wasn't real, oversized nose, balloons in one hand, flowers in the other. For a moment, it looked harmless, almost absurd, the kind of thing that might make a child laugh. But in the clown's other hand was a gun. The shot rang out, sharp and final, and Marlene collapsed in her doorway as the balloons drifted upward, the flowers scattered across the porch, and the clown turned without panic, walking calmly to a waiting white Chrysler LeBaron. The car pulled away, leaving behind silence, leaving behind horror, leaving behind a family that would never be the same. Inside the house, panic erupted. Joe ran to his mother. His friends screamed. Neighbors rushed to help. Sirens filled the quiet streets. But the damage was done. Marlene lay bleeding, her life stolen in a moment that felt surreal. A murder carried out in daylight. A murder that seemed like theater. Joe later told investigators that he saw the clown turn and walk away, calm, deliberate, not running, not panicked, as if the act had been rehearsed. Witnesses outside described the same thing. The image of balloons floating in the air while Marlene lay dying was burned into memory, a surreal contrast between innocence and violence. Detectives arrived quickly, the flashing red and blue lights cutting through the calm of the suburban street, neighbors standing in clusters, whispering, pointing, trying to make sense of what they had just seen. The porch was littered with evidence that looked almost absurd in its innocence. Balloons bobbing gently against the doorway, flowers scattered across the concrete, petals crushed under the weight of footsteps. And in the center of it all, Marlene Warren, lying in a pool of blood. The first officers on scene secured the area, pushing back the crowd, marking the driveway with tape, and stepping carefully around the porch. They noted the details immediately. The clown costume, the balloons, the bouquet, the white Chrysler LeBaron speeding away. It was a murder staged like a performance, a killing that carried the surreal quality of theater. Inside the house, Joe was frantic, his clothes stained with his mother's blood, his voice breaking as he tried to explain what he had seen. He told detectives that the clown had not spoken, had not hesitated, had simply raised the gun and fired. His friends backed up the account, describing the same chilling calm, the same deliberate walk to the waiting car. Investigators began piecing together the fragments. The Chrysler LeBaron was the first lead. Witnesses described the car clearly: white, clean, with tinted windows. Detectives traced it back to a rental lot owned by Michael Warren, Marlene's husband. The connection was immediate and troubling. Michael was already known in Wellington for shady business practices, whispers of fraud, insurance scams, and rental schemes. His reputation was complicated, and now his business was tied directly to the getaway car. Attention turned to Michael quickly. Detectives interviewed neighbors, friends, and employees. They learned that Michael's marriage to Marlene was strained, marked by arguments and financial disputes. Rumors of infidelity surfaced, pointing to a woman named Sheila Keen, an employee at Michael's dealership. Sheila was described as attractive, ambitious, and close to Michael in ways that went beyond business. The suspicion grew. Was this murder the result of an affair, a plot to remove Marlene from the picture? The clown costume was another lead. Investigators canvassed local shops, asking clerks if anyone had purchased clown outfits recently. At Spotlight, a costume store in West Palm Beach, a clerk remembered a woman buying a clown suit, makeup, and a wig, paying in cash, avoiding eye contact. The description matched Sheila Keen. It was circumstantial, but it added weight to the growing suspicion. Yet in 1990, the case was fragile. DNA technology was limited. Forensic science was not as advanced as it would become decades later. Prosecutors hesitated. They had a motive. They had suspicion. They had fragments of evidence, but they did not have certainty. Without direct proof, without a witness who could identify the face beneath the clown makeup, the case stalled. For Marlene's family, the frustration was unbearable. They had watched her die in daylight, in front of witnesses, and yet the killer walked free. For investigators, the case became a haunting puzzle, a file that sat on desks, reopened, revisited, but never resolved. The killer clown had vanished into silence, leaving behind only questions. Detectives began to see a triangle forming: Michael, Sheila, and Marlene. At the center was motive. If Michael wanted Marlene gone, Sheila had reason to act. If Sheila wanted Michael, Marlene stood in the way. The clown costume, the balloons, the flowers, the car, all of it pointed toward a plot that was personal, calculated, and staged with chilling precision. But suspicion was not enough. They had fragments, but they did not have certainty. Without direct proof, without a witness who could identify the face beneath the clown makeup, the case stalled. Michael's shadow grew darker in the years that followed. His business practices drew lawsuits, accusations of fraud, and eventually criminal charges. In 1994, he was convicted of racketeering and fraud, serving nearly 4 years in prison. The conviction painted him as a man willing to cheat, willing to manipulate, willing to cross lines. But even then, he was never charged with Marlene's murder. The killer clown case remained unsolved, a ghost story in Wellington, a file gathering dust in police archives. For Marlene's family, the frustration was unbearable. Michael Warren's shadow lingered over every page of the file, every interview, every lead. He was the man at the center of suspicion, the man whose life seemed built on deception. the man whose wife had been murdered by a clown carrying balloons and flowers. The murder of Marlene Warren did not fade from memory, but the investigation slowed, stalled, and eventually froze. The killer clown had vanished into silence, leaving behind fragments that seemed impossible to connect. For Marlene's family, the years that followed were filled with grief and frustration. Her son Joe carried the memory of that morning like a scar. The image of balloons floating above his dying mother etched into his mind, a surreal picture that replayed endlessly. Neighbors remembered the absurdity of it all. The Aero Club community, once a place of comfort, became haunted by the story. Every time someone mentioned Morning Glory Drive, the image of the clown returned. It was a crime that felt like legend, a story too bizarre to be real, yet too tragic to forget. Detectives kept the file open, revisiting it when new leads surfaced, but the trail was cold. Witnesses moved away, memories faded, and evidence sat in boxes, waiting for technology that did not yet exist. The Chrysler LeBaron had been abandoned, the costume traced to a shop. The suspicions pointed to Michael and Sheila, but none of it was enough. Without DNA, without a confession, without a witness who could pierce the mask, the case remained unsolved. Michael Warren's life carried on. The whispers continued. Was he involved? Did he orchestrate it? Did Sheila act alone? But the answers remained hidden. Years later, Michael married Sheila Keen. The union felt like confirmation to many, a marriage built on suspicion, a relationship that had been whispered about since 1990. Together, they moved to Tennessee, living quietly, running a burger restaurant, presenting themselves as ordinary people. But beneath the surface was a past that refused to die. For Joe, the pain was constant. He spoke often about his mother, about the kindness she showed, about the way she welcomed people into her home. He remembered her laughter, her warmth, and the way she made everyone feel safe. That safety had been shattered in a single moment, replaced by a memory that refused to fade. The cold years stretched into decades. The killer clown case became one of Florida's most infamous unsolved murders, a story that appeared in newspapers, on television, in whispers across the state. It was surreal, bizarre, haunting. Detectives refused to let it go, but without new evidence, the case remained frozen. Yet technology was changing. DNA testing was advancing, becoming more precise, more reliable, more powerful. What had been impossible in 1990 was becoming possible in the 2000s. Evidence that had sat in boxes for years could now be re-examined, retested, reconsidered. The persistence of memory, the refusal to let the case die, kept it alive. The clown's mask had hidden the killer for decades, but science was beginning to catch up. In 2014, Palm Beach County investigators reopened the file with fresh eyes. They pulled evidence from boxes that had sat untouched for decades: balloons, costume fibers, witness statements, rental records, and began re-examining them with modern forensic tools. DNA testing, once unreliable, had become precise. What had been impossible in 1990 was now within reach. The clown costume was retested. Fibers and hair samples were analyzed. Witness statements were cross-checked against new databases. Slowly, the fragments began to align. The Chrysler LeBaron was traced again, its rental records tied directly to Michael Warren's dealership. Employees confirmed that Sheila Keen had access to the car, that she could take it without raising suspicion. Michael and Sheila had been romantically involved since before Marlene's murder. Marlene had become an obstacle, a barrier to their relationship, and her death cleared the path. In September 2017, nearly 3 decades after the murder, investigators made their move. Sheila Keen-Warren was arrested outside her home in Virginia, where she had been living with Michael. The arrest shocked the community. The killer clown had been unmasked. The woman long suspected of being behind the disguise was finally in custody. News spread quickly. Headlines across the country carried the surreal story. Killer clown arrested after 27 years. The case that had haunted Florida for decades was suddenly alive again, the courtroom now waiting to hear the story of balloons, flowers, and murder. For Marlene's family, the arrest was bittersweet. Justice was finally within reach, but the pain of decades could not be erased. The courtroom became the stage where the story would finally be told in full. Prosecutors laid out the narrative with precision. They described the morning of May 26, 1990, the knock at the door, the clown costume, the balloons, the bouquet, the gunshot. They traced the Chrysler LeBaron back to Michael Warren's dealership. They revisited the Spotlight costume shop clerk's memory. They presented the DNA evidence that tied Sheila to the crime piece by piece. They reconstructed the performance of murder, a crime carried out in daylight, disguised as theater. Witnesses testified. Neighbors recalled the sight of the clown walking calmly to the car. Joe Warren spoke about the horror of watching his mother collapse, about the surreal image of balloons floating above her body. His voice carried the weight of decades, the pain of memory that refused to fade. Detectives described the persistence of the case, the way it had haunted them, the way they had refused to let it die. The defense pushed back. Attorneys argued that the evidence was circumstantial, that memories had faded, that witnesses were unreliable. They claimed the case was built on suspicion, not certainty. But the jury listened, weighing the fragments, considering the decades of silence, and seeing the clown for what it was, a disguise hiding a calculated murder. In April 2023, Sheila Keen-Warren pled guilty to second-degree murder. The plea was a compromise, a way to avoid a trial that could have carried a life sentence. She was sentenced to 12 years in prison. For Marlene's family, it was justice delayed, but not denied. The case that had begun with balloons and flowers ended with conviction. The legacy of the killer clown case is more than a conviction. It is a story about persistence, about the refusal to let memory fade, about the way technology can give voice to evidence long ignored. It is a story about masks, about the way disguise can hide identity, but not forever. For Joe Warren, the memory remains. He still recalls the knock at the door, the sight of the clown, the sound of the gunshot, the silence that followed. He remembers his mother's kindness, her warmth, her laughter, and the way she made everyone feel safe. That safety was shattered in a single moment, replaced by a memory that will never fade. For investigators, the case stands as a testament to persistence. They refused to let the file close, refused to let the clown remain a ghost. They revisited the evidence, re-examined the fragments, and finally, after decades, brought justice. The killer clown case remains one of Florida's most chilling stories. A murder carried out in daylight. A murder disguised as theater. A murder that haunted a family for decades. It is a story that continues to echo. A story that reminds us that masks can hide faces, but not forever.